Welcome back to the Midnight Who Show, and today is a spoiler review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Wow. I was entertained by this movie. Seriously, Marvel knocked it out of the park with this movie. And, for a character I know absolutely nothing about, Marvel did a great job introducing me to this character and the world they inhabit. Seriously, I was blown away by the action scenes, the casting. They did so good with this movie. And it is probably up there as one of my favorite origin stories that Marvel has done. So let's talk about some of my favorite parts of this movie. One of my favorite parts was actually the villain. Now, Marvel villains have always been a mixed bag for me, but Wenwu did a phenomenal job. The actor they picked really brought something to this role, and the performance was moving in parts, and he did just the sympathetic villain really well. Speaking of the Mandarin, there's also the fake Mandarin that we saw in Iron Man 3, Trevor. Now, this could have been something that I really hated. And when I first heard that Trevor was going to make an appearance, I thought this was a cameo. I really did not expect that he would be the kind of this supporting character for a good chunk of the movie. And there was a lot of humor he brought that I thought was pretty okay. And I really actually thought his inclusion wasn't too bad. It could have been really worse, but I think it was okay. I don't quite know what I think of bringing back Trevor. I think one scene was enough, but I still like some of his parts later on in the movie. But it is kind of an interesting thing to bring him back, as he kind of did basically pretend to be the Mandarin, and he faked this act. He was an actor. And I really liked him he's kind of apologizing for that, which I thought was a really interesting aspect of it. And the reason he became an actor I thought was hilarious. Speaking of humor, there is all the Marvel humor you would expect. And I didn't think it was that bad. There was parts of it that really just didn't feel like they needed to go there, which happens a lot in these Marvel's movies. But it was still okay. Now, I can say Simu Liu was an amazing choice for Shang-Chi. He did an amazing job with this role, and his dynamic with Katie, played by Awkwafina, was awesome. I really liked their dynamic, and his sister, Xialing, was a great addition to this movie as well. Seriously, the casting they did for this movie was phenomenal. They really made me care for all these characters, which is phenomenal. Now, one of my biggest problems with this movie is the CGI toward the end. I think the final act of this movie I really enjoyed the final act, but there was times when the CGI was kind of noticeable, mostly on there's the, Great Protector Dragon and the giant creature from the zone. I didn't quite you could notice it. And I didn't really like the idea of, I really liked the small fight scenes that throughout this movie, like the bus scene was phenomenal, and the side of the building fight scene was really good. I really liked them, so I wasn't really sure I really don't think I like the idea of having this big epic battle with CGI and all that, when I would more prefer just, I think, a nice battle between Shang-Chi and Wenwu, which we did get with the Ten Rings, which was really cool, by the way. But yeah, the final act, I would say, is a little bit mixed bag for me. And the second part, I think, was a little bit slower, but I think it really helped. Much like other movies, it needed to have that kind of slow down, and I was okay with that. Speaking of the Ten Rings, they are a very powerful weapon, I will say, and the effects that they did for this really brought them to life. I really like that. Now, one of the aspects of this movie that I think it did really well is the flashback scenes, where we see how Shang-Chi how he was trained by his father, Wenwu, and the background. I think they did a really good job integrating them into this movie, and they didn't feel forced when they were on there. I think they did a really good job with that. Now, this movie has 2 post-credit scenes, and they are really good post-credit scenes. They're some of my favorites that Marvel has done in a long time, because they also feel significant. They feel like they're setting up things. And they actually lead to one of my praises with this movie is there's so much more to explore with these 10 rings that it really opens up the door for a sequel, and I'm really excited to see what that is going to be, because there's, in the post-credit scene, revealed that there's a beacon. It'll be very interesting to see what that's all about. But one of the coolest aspects of this post-credit scene, the mid-credit one, is there's some cameos that I did not expect. It was like, wow, Captain Marvel, Bruce Banner? Wow, that's cool. It was kind of hilarious. I wore a Hulk shirt to the movie when I saw it, and I told my friend, I did not plan this. I just wore this shirt. Now, what I can also say is Wong. I really enjoyed that scene with him and Shang-Chi and Katie as they did karaoke. That was hilarious. And the second one sets up the new 10 rings, and it'll be interesting to see where that heads to in the future. But yeah, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a phenomenal MCU origin movie. I think they did everything right. You know, it was very good fight scenes, some good dynamics with family exploration, and a really sympathetic villain. And they kind of redeemed basically that thing that they did with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, which I think is really good. And even the things I didn't quite like, which I felt was the final act, was mixed to me, and the inclusion of Trevor, which I thought was really hilarious when we first saw it, but it did, it's like, did we really need him this far into the movie? And a few slow parts here and there, but it doesn't take away that this was just a great origin movie that actually made me want the sequel. And that's the key there. This movie just didn't leave me disappointed where I'm like, okay, well, that was great. Okay, we'll see what happens in the future. No, this movie, you want to see the next Shang-Chi movie and where he ends up in the next movie. I'm really excited to see it. So, yeah, the second movie of the Phase 4 felt a lot more significant. It felt like there was some really good setup for the future, and I'm really excited to see what comes. And also interesting to see more of this kind of post-Endgame world and how all these people brought back. It'll be interesting to see that more in the future. Oh, and the director. I should mention the director. Seriously. He's a great director. And I hope they bring him back for the next movie. But yeah, if you've seen Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.